which is explained to persons who are becoming members. New members may be required to supply documentary evidence of their income.
Thank you, Nicolette. My guest today is Nicolette Cupidon Hennes, Senior Director of Pensions at the FSC. For the FSC Minute, I am Nadine Newsom.
There's always opportunity amidst adversity, isn't there? But I bet you think that these tough economic times is as dim as it gets. Well, we have a very good shot at beating it. Now more than ever, our future lies with the education of our youth. And, well, our teachers pledge to do the most they can with the little they have to make it happen.
We're all trapped inside a GUI engine together. Things are sluggish and it's a slow grind forward. From all indications, the road ahead is long and winding. But there are enough positive signs urging us to hold on for the long haul. No sector of the national economy has been spared the effects of the global financial fallout. Each, however, according to its unique characteristics, has slipped into its own survival mode. But for many of these sectors to return successfully to pre-crisis productivity levels, one very important branch has to retain its relevance during and after the crisis.
I'm Laurel James. I'm a teacher of social studies. I'm a senior teacher.
And of conscience, competence, and compassion. So that's what we're doing here at the college.
Welcome the members of the GIS team to my grade 3C class.
Education is at the core of development. Education sets targets for the competencies that a country needs to drive its production base. The education system and the education goals must match closely the development goals.
But the education sector, like most other sectors, has not escaped the effects of current recessionary conditions. Where our educators are headquartered, in essence in our basic primary and secondary schools, there is a convergence of various groups that are affected in their own way by the general reduction in resources.
The number of welfare students that require assistance, has increased significantly this year. We have a number of students that come to school without breakfast, and so that affects the learning process.
There are times when they don't get the books that they are supposed to get, like added books that the ministry doesn't provide. But I will try and see if I can get one from like the last year student or thing like that.
As parents struggle to pay fees and so forth, it also impacts on us because a reduction in fees in any sort of way when we were already operating with a case of not enough, it does make it quite a challenge.
We are parents away from home. We are guidance counselors, we are security officers, we are everything.
But in crisis situations like we're now experiencing, the role of the teacher understandably becomes even more demanding. Teachers are, however, still expected to use as efficiently and effectively as possible the resources they're allowed to achieve the desired levels of competencies among their students.
Teachers have to be better planners and target setters. In their own classrooms, they have to learn to set targets. They have to employ methods that are geared towards holistic development of children.
Preceding the onset of the current constricting conditions, even local teachers were always encouraged to use their initiative in the classroom in preparing their students. In these extraordinary times, however, teachers are being called upon to find even more creative ways to do more with less.
I have 40 children teaching in this space here, so it is really difficult. There's a class next door and there's one over there, and we have just the chalkboard partitions. Many of our lessons are involved like doing creative perform, like hitting on the table, making some music or something. So you can imagine if the class next door starts beating the table and having a very interactive lesson. And I need to have one also, and the one over there need to have one, so it becomes very challenging. But, you know, in the midst of all the challenges, we just have to try to make it work.
There are many of our schools where the teachers work in conditions that are completely unacceptable. You know, where in other professions we would say absolutely not. And yet they're still expected to produce a certain level, students that are able to function at a certain level with a significant lack of resources.
Well, the government has its plans to help to resource the schools to the best of the economic abilities. What we have, we can use what we have to help the schools to the extent possible. But teachers must not forget that there are resources around us every day, and we need to be creative about using those resources. In fact, I think we need to stop complaining and become problem solvers.
As the sticky engine labors along, education is being touted as the most valuable collateral that will emerge from the grind. Now, schools are not only expected to turn out students with the requisite competencies to exploit conventional opportunities, but also many others that will emerge due to the nature of the period. The squeeze on resources educators and education policymakers believe might prove to be the most effective tool yet in facilitating the paradigm shift.
Economic challenge is nothing new to Jamaicans. This is something that we have had to live with.
We have always experienced crises, and that has never stopped us from carrying out our duties. We are now in a severe economic crisis. However, we try our best to make do with what we have, because our mission is to educate.
You can't just throw up your hands and say, well, no money, the government is not doing enough, the parents don't have any money. You as a class teacher have to see it as your responsibility to a certain degree to ensure as much as possible that your children are learning.
Teachers, like the rest of people in Jamaica, should use this crisis as an opportunity to improve our efficiency, improve our effectiveness, to do more with less, to gear our children, to gear the next generation towards understanding that we cannot waste, that we have to value what we have, we need to live together, we need to share experiences.
Local teachers from the onset of the crisis say they had worked out and adapted to their changing role. They each have in mind what needs to be done in preparing a relevant post-crisis workforce.
Here in schools is where I think we have a significant opportunity to assist in addressing some of the economic challenges that face Jamaica. What is our role then? It is to prepare future leaders. It's to continue to try to develop leaders that are well-rounded, that are well-educated, that understand the world and the way it works, and so are able to help us to come up with solutions.
We can't teach them in a vacuum anymore because things sometimes have changed, so we have to teach them to come and take a job that is going to be there. We can't just train them, you know, out there.
I try my best to get them to become skilled individuals. If you interview some of those persons who are being entrenched from the public and private sector, how many among them have a skill that they'll probably tell you is probably a much lower percentage than you would expect? So many of those persons will be unable now to turn elsewhere.
However, teachers say that whether it is in fairly normal circumstances or extraordinary ones like this, they don't believe they're appreciated enough for the role they play.
As our social conditions decline, the role of the teacher seems to expand exponentially. Teachers are now not just teachers, but they are mothers and fathers and counselors and providers and all sorts of different roles that the teacher has to take on. And I don't think that our teachers are necessarily recognized and respected in that role.
I'm not so sure that the students themselves do appreciate us, because we create for them an environment that will give them an opportunity to achieve success in life. And there are some students who, despite the guidance that we provide, they tend to want to go into the negative, into the wrong direction.
Even though there is very little room for varying in these times, our students remain, for this period, the best